the best way at this point in time to get votes is to cede to the American people's conscience. They're disrespecting the national anthem. They're pissing on our lawn, so to speak. So as long as I can get the people's attention and focus on that, then we can get away from Michael Cohen and these tapes and the Miller investigation and Vladimir Putin and Russia and everything else. I need these votes. Get with me because I'm American. This NFL and this football is not. But again, go back and listen to any of my shows. I'm telling you what's going to happen now. And this is going to be before or actually during one of some of the first games of the preseason are going to be played. He's going to double down again, and he's going to name names. And then when the NFL doesn't respond to it and comes back with some sort of modification of their policy again, Donald Trump is going to double down on that again. And it's going to spiral out of control for the rest of the football season. Mark my words. Moving along. Baseball standings. Again, the second half of the season just started here on yesterday with the All-Star game taking place here on this past Tuesday, with the Boston Red Sox having the best record in the major leagues right now. A record of 68-30 out of the American League East. They have a 4.5 game lead on the New York Yankees, who right now would occupy the first wildcard spot with a 5-game edge over the Seattle Mariners, pulling in second place in the East at this point in time with a record of 62-33. The rest of the division is kind of mediocre at this point in time. Tampa Bay Rays 18 games back at first, 2 games over 500. The Toronto Blue Jays 9 games over 500, 24 games back. And one of the disappointments of the season with them basically having traded away Manny Machado to Los Angeles. The Baltimore Ravens bring up the last place in the American League Eastern Division with a record of 28-69, 39.5 games out of first place. Looking out west with the defending World Series champions, Houston Astros, rolling right along with a record of 64-35 this season. The Seattle Mariners, again aforementioned, are in the wild card 2 slot with a record of 58-39, seeking to end the longest playoff drought in North American sports right now. Have not made the playoffs in the past 17 years. A very good bet to make the ground in the West if that's possible. If not, get a wild card berth to make the playoffs here this season. The Oakland Athletics, who some at the beginning of the season pegged to be one of the worst teams in baseball. Yeah, they always seem to kind of pull through what we suspected. 8 games back at the Astros with a record of 55-42. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim 1 game over 500. And the Texas Rangers, again, in the rebuilding season with a record of 41-56. 22 games back out of first place. Looking at the American League Central standings at this time, the Cleveland Indians, 2 years removed from a World Series berth against the Chicago Cubs, in first place in the American League Central with a record of 52-43. Everybody else in the division has a losing record. Minnesota is 600-500, 7 games back at Cleveland. Detroit lost Cabrera earlier in the season. Again, a bunch of young guys playing out there for the Tigers at this time, 12.5 back. That team is 16 games under 500. The Chicago White Sox at 33-62, 19 games back. And the Kansas City Royals, 3 years removed from winning the World Championship, basically have the worst record in the American League, and I believe the worst record in baseball at this time as I'm looking at the standings, and they do, with a record of 27-68. 25 games out of first place, have only won 11 games at home this season. And yet Tim Kirchin of ESPN that was on PTI, pardon the interruption, on yesterday, and there was subject matter, and people asked if like the Orioles are tanking or the Royals are tanking. No, the Royals are not tanking. As Tim Kirchin said, basically they held on to Hosmer and Kane and the rest of those guys for a year longer than they probably should have. And again, this is the price that you pay when you hold on to these guys and you don't get anything back in return for them. They made another run for it towards the end of last season. Team got hot, and they tried to make a run for it there, and they weren't able to actually pull it off. So those guys left. All they got back, in some cases, was draft pick compensation, and in some cases, they didn't. So this is what you have there. You have a lot of fans who I know listen to this show who question Ned Yost and his decision-making and why is his team so bad. Unfortunately, they're going to be bad this season. They're on pace right now to win 46 games out of 162. Next season, probably you could expect a little bit of the same. I've always said by 2020 or 2021, with things when they'll start to turn back around, as they did when you had Hosmer and Moose and Salvador Perez and those guys coming up there, where you have a few losing seasons or a losing tradition, if you will. It's going to take time for the pipeline to get replenished and for those guys to get back on track and get the Royals back into some sort of contention here in the American League. Looking at the National League, again, the aforementioned Los Angeles Dodgers just acquired Manny Machado from the Baltimore Orioles here over the All-Star break. This is a team that at one point in time was 15 games back in the West. Early this season, people were panicking. The Dodgers went to the World Series, went to Game 7. Now they may not make the playoffs. Lead the National League West with a record of 53 and 43, 10 games over 500 at this time. The Arizona Diamondbacks not that far off, a game and a half back. The Colorado Rockies are 2 games back. The San Francisco Giants, 2 games over 500 and 50 and 48 are 4 games back. In the Padres of San Diego pulling up the Western Division, 19 games under 500, 14 and a half games back. So, yeah, the Dodgers are in first place. But, again, you have San Francisco's 4 games back. Colorado's 2, Arizona a half game back. So that's going to be a bit of a race to watch during the National League. Moving on to the Central Division, where the Cubs right now lead the division are the Milwaukee Brewers. Again, another surprise team in Major League Baseball this season. By 3 games, the St. Louis Cardinals fired manager Mike Matheny. Do have an interim manager in place. Word is that former Yankees manager Joe Girardi may be the permanent successor there in St. Louis. Let me tell you guys, as a Yankees fan, Joe Girardi will get you to the dance. He just won't get you over the top. Keith might have said that when you hire him in. You look at things and go, well, how come we can't win a championship? Look on your bench. There's your answer. Pittsburgh Pirates, a game under 500 at this time of 48-49, 9.5 games out of first place. In the Cincinnati Reds, 10 games under 500, 14 games back there in the National League Central Division. Moving on to the Eastern Division. Bit of a surprise with the Philadelphia Phillies, 53 and 42, leading also the upstart Atlanta Braves with a record of 52 and 42 as well, a half game back. One of the bigger, or if not the biggest disappointment in baseball this season, with the Washington Nationals at 500, 5 games back in the Eastern Division. The Miami Marlins, 13.5 back, 16 games under 500, and the New York Mets pulling up the Eastern Division with a record of 39 and 55, 13.5 games out of first place. As far as the wild card standings go, there's not really a race, if you will, in the American League. Again, the Yankees have a 5-game cushion. Seattle right now occupies wild card slot 2 with their division mates. Oakland A's 3 games back from that, and then it kind of levels out from there, where you have Tampa Bay is 8.5 out of the second wild card spot. The Angels 9 games, and again you basically have the rest of the American League Central and the vestiges of the Western Division, starting from 12.5 games all the way ranging down to the Royals and Baltimore, 30 games out of that wild card spot. So the Yankees can either win the division. If not, Boston would occupy spot 1. Seattle has a 3-game lead over the current wild card spot 2. So again, 3 games can fluctuate very quickly. You can also expand it out to 6-7 games equally as quickly as well. So we'll see how things work out for them. They're in the National League. The Milwaukee Brewers have a game lead over the Atlanta Braves in the National League wildcard standings. The Arizona Diamondbacks are a game and a half out of wildcard spot 2. The Colorado Rockies 2 games back. The Giants 4, again similar to the Western Division standings. The St. Louis Cardinals 4.5 back. The Nationals 5. Pittsburgh Pirates 5.5. And then after that, kind of bottoms out with the Reds Marlins, Mets, and San Diego Padres ranging from 10 to 14 games out of the second wild card spot during the National League. So, got some good races, division-wise, wild card wise going on. Here again, the second half of the baseball season carries on here. We get ready for some October baseball here after not too long. And again, finally here on today's show, I'm going to look at a little bit of boxing with Manny Pacquiao making his return to the ring last Saturday night, topping Lucas Matthysse with a 7th round knockout for a version of the WBA welterweight title. I watched the fight, and a lot of people were impressed. And yeah, Manny's back in. The welterweight division is going to be no. I wasn't really impressed with the fight. I wasn't really impressed with the fighter. I think Matthysse came in and was winded. It just was not Manny Pacquiao's best offer. He only landed 29% of his punches in that fight. And then here earlier this week, he's calling out for Mayweather for a rematch. Let's run it back. That's not going to happen. Floyd's retired. The last fight happened 5 years after it really should have. Manny was hurt in the Mayweather fight, in the lead to the Mayweather fight. Really should have been fighting the fight anyways. So it's kind of like you're calling a guy that's retired. That fight's not going to happen. In addition to that, you have other guys in the division such as Errol Spence Jr., Bud Crawford, Danny Garcia, Showtime Sean Porter, Mikey Garcia, Keith Thurman. That honestly, I would take any of those guys I just mentioned against Pacquiao, and I would take any of them to knock him out in the early rounds. And I can tell you right now, he's not going to land or throw 29% of his punches against any of those fighters and walk out with the W. It's not going to happen. So, yeah, you want a belt. Yeah, you want to fight. It's your 60th fight. Everybody is patting him on the back and is more ballyhooed. And okay, I get that. Okay, cool. But I mean, let's be realistic. Let's be honest here. He's not going to be going very much farther here in the welterweight division again, especially with all those young guys against Errol Spence Jr. Bud Crawford again, Danny Garcia, and Porter going to be fighting here in September. Mikey Garcia fights here next weekend, which we will cover on In the Zone next week. And Keith Thurman as well is supposed to be getting back in the ring here pretty soon as well. So, like I said, I wasn't impressed with it. You have a lot of people that are like, yeah, he's back. I got some excitement back in the division. I wasn't impressed, but again, to each his own, and we'll see what happens with Manny. And then finally, again, as far as the Joshua Wilder fight is supposed to take place here next year, April 13th, at Wembley Stadium, as Anthony Joshua will defend against Alexander Povetkin here in September. Eddie Hearn did say that his offer to Deontay Wilder of $15 million will not go up. So Anthony Joshua said the fight will happen regardless. That's why he made the April 13th date for Wembley. Unfortunately, in my opinion, the dollar amount is going to have to go up if that fight's going to happen. You're not going to tell him you're taking $15 and then that's going to be it. You want this fight to happen, you're going to have to break off a little bit more money than what you're breaking off at this point in time in order to get Deontay in the ring. Now, the side story there was Jarrell Big Baby Miller was also at this press conference again with Eddie Hearn rolling out the DAZN platform again. It's his pay-per-view platform there as well at the press conference. This is one of their more bigger rollouts there. We had Jarrell Big Baby Miller, who was there side again during the press conference for Povetkin and Anthony Joshua, and basically made some comments about the man's mother and taking the man's mother out for dinner and some other derogatory things. And Andreas Hill had interviewed him for the Sporting News and saw it online. You can see Anthony Joshua was like, wait a minute. He said something about my mama? That to me, okay, I get it. You're trying to draw attention. You don't go there. You can say whatever you want about that man. His boxing style, it's been known that Miller wants to fight him and Wilder and every other heavyweight in the division. Okay, cool, I get that. You leave that man's mama out of it. Because now, if you two do get in the ring, That's going to be the one thing that's going to be ringing in his head. Is like, wait